Yes, we discussed about the two important techniques that is used in communication. That is how we can use this HTTP protocol to request and get a response. So we have discussed about the HTTP request, and we also discussed about the important methods that we use in the HTTP request methods, and we also discussed the basic structure of this HTTP request methods. So to give a simple example, you can take this example of a HTTP request, and this is the structure that we have discussed. Like initially, it will have the method name, URL, and so on. So similar to that, we have these examples. Like if it is a get request, so how it will be? It is a guest and method name, then followed by the URL, then the version, and so on. Then it will have the user agent. So these all are the header lines: user agent, host name, accept. So all these are the header lines that we have. So similarly, if we are posting some information, then we can use this post method and the user agent. So this user agent is again comes under the header lines. This identifies which type of browser we are using, and other details will be explained here. So we have another example here. We can see that there is a method, path, and protocol. So it can be host. Like we can have the header lines as the accept. So this indicates that which type of file we are going to refer or we are requesting for. So it can be text.html, text.image, I mean it can be an image file, and so on. So accept language, encoding scheme, all these details are present here, and connection, uh, if whether it is alive or no. So all these details comes under the header lines, and then followed by that we'll be having the entity body. So if you are using the get method, we are not uh, sending any data, so we cannot have any body here. So this is what how we actually write this code for the HTTP request. So we have discussed all this. So the categories of header lines we have discussed are like general, request, response, so date and time. So all those details you can find it here. What is the time and other details, we can get it here in the general method. So next we will go ahead with the next concept, that is the HTTP response phase. So what is the HTTP response? Suppose say you are requesting for a particular file, or you click on a particular link, you will get some information. So that we call it as the HTTP response phase, that will be sent by the web server to the browser. So what is the structure of this, or the general form of HTTP response is as follows. It will have status line. Again here it will have the response header fields. There we had the request header fields, and then we have the blank line and the response body. So let us take this example for this so that you can understand it. So this is what example for the HTTP response. So here we have the status line, then the response headers. Again, it will include like date, time, okay, last modified time, and other details, connection, content type. All the details will be included in the response headers. Then it will have a blank line. Then there is a response message body. So whatever response you will get from the server, that will be displayed on the web browser. So that is nothing but the response body. So whatever the information you are requesting for, that will be observed, or that you can get, and it will be displayed on the browser. So here we're going to study about these things in detail. So what are this HTTP 1.1 and so on. So the first line is all about the status line. So this status lines includes the HTTP version used and a 3-digit status code for the response and a short textual explanation of the status code. So here we use something called as the status code. That means whenever you are searching something, or you are requesting some information from the browser, you should get to know whether I'm able to reach that particular destination, or whether I'm able to access the document or no. So for that we use these status codes. Like we have in general, the status codes will begin with 1 2 3 4 5, but they will be of 3 digits, like 101, 102, 202, 203, and so on. So these are the 3-digit status codes that will inform, or they will give a proper information whether we are able to get the response, or whether there is some problem with the server, or whether there is some problem with the client. All those details we can get with this particular code. And then a simple message about the status code. And the general meanings of this status line and these codes are given here. So here you have the general category. So if the first digits of the status codes, if it starts with 1, it means that it belongs to the category of informational. If its digit starts with 2, like in the earlier case 200 we have got, so it means a success. That means whatever we have requested, we are able to get the response, and that indicates it is a success. So if there is a status code starts with 3, it represents the redirection. If the first digit starts with 4, then it indicates it as a client error. Like most of the time we get this error, 404. Okay, the page not found. And we have something called as the first digit starts with 5, like 5 not 500. So there is a possibility of the server error. So there are a lot of status codes, but we will be understanding only the few ones. I mean, the main meaning of these digits will be understanding. So that's all. And here, if you look into this, so it can be 1XX. That means that it can be 101, 102, and so on. So there are lot of status codes that have been identified or they have been defined by the World Wide Web Consortium. But we will be using most of the time like 404 or 500 server errors and so on. So that will be indicated by this status line. So it will indicate the HTTP protocol, its version, and the status of the request that you have made. And then the simple message that will be there in the first line. And then followed by that, we will be having the response headers. Like it will include the date, time, and other details. So that will be included in the response headers. And then at the end, we'll be having the response body or the actual message that we want to display on the web browser. So for this, let us take an example. I will open our college website, gcc.bgm.org. So here I'm typing a URL. So I'm requesting something to the this particular domain, I mean to the internet, so that it can search this. So this website is valid, so it will give a response. This is what we call it as a response. I have made a request and I'm getting a response. So if I go to courses and if I click on BCA, I am requesting the browser that please provide me the information that is present at this at this particular page. So it will go to that particular page. It will get back the response. So if it is available, we can get this. Okay. So, but for example, suppose say that I will type this particular URL, gccbgm.org /myinfo.html, something of this kind. Okay, so it is an invalid URL basically. So if I try to request this particular invalid URL, okay, it will give a message saying that this page could not be found. So this myinfo.html is not present at this particular domain or at this particular web server. So we will get a message saying that, I mean, this is the 404. So these are what we call it as the status codes. So if this page that we are trying to access, if it is not there, then we call it as the client error, or we can say it as the status code as 404. So similarly, there are different kinds of other status codes as well. For example, if there is some problem with the server, so we will get a message saying that 500, that indicates the internal server error. So there can be a problem with the HTTP server or a temporary server error and so on. All these details we can get with these status codes. So here in this case, the moment I click on the course BPA or BCA like this, I'm making a request. And if that request was successful, I will get a information. So this information, what I'm getting, okay, I may get a image or any other information, whatever is there in that particular page, I will get that. So this is what we call it as the response body. So in case of this response body will include whatever is there on that particular page. There can be an image, there can be audio clip, or there can be a simple paragraph, which whatever is there on that particular page, that we will get it as a response body or a response message from the web server to the browser, and we can check this information on the browser. Are we getting it? So as I earlier only I have told that we are not going to do this right now. Our objective is to write the simple programs based on the HTML. So we are going to start with writing simple programs, and we are going to understand the basic syntax and structure of this HTML. So we are going to study about a lot of these tags, and we can create some simple applications. So before going ahead with that, I want to give some information for to develop these or to write these simple HTML programs. Either we need a notepad. So everyone, those who are having the laptops or computer system, by default notepad will be available. But apart from this, you can install another application, like we can say the Notepad plus plus. Like for C programming or for any Java or Python and so on, we may require the compilers or the interpreters. Like for C, we require a compiler. For Python, we require the interpreter. But for to run these programs, HTML programs, we do not require any other special compiler or interpreter. We require the processor itself. That the Notepad actually acts as a runtime environment where we are can create the applications, or we can write the applications and we can check and so on. So you can install this Notepad plus plus. So I'm telling you again, it is not mandatory to install this Notepad plus plus, but here we can get the inbuilt tags. So the programming will become very easy for us. And you can download this, just a 4 to 5 MB of file software. You can go to the filehippo.com. So there is a website called as filehippo.com, and you can download this. You can just search for Notepad plus plus. The latest version will appear. You can just click and you can download it and you can install it. So we'll be studying about the basic syntax and other things. So before going ahead with that, we'll be studying about the HTML and the XHTML. So we'll understand the origin and how the HTML language has been evolved over the years, and we are going to compare this. I mean, I have made a differences between HTML and XHTML. So we'll be studying these two, and we'll understand this by learning the differences between these two. So originally we had the HTML, that stands for the hypertext markup language. So we will understand what is the meaning of this hypertext markup language is all about. So we had like many programming languages, like we have C, Java, and so on. But when we talk about this markup language, it is not meant for just doing some logical aspects. Like basically we use C or Java and so on to solve, or we write some programs which can solve our day-to-day life problems by using some logics. No doubt with web development also we can do that, but basically hypertext markup language is not going to give some, I mean, it is not going to do some logical aspects. It is not going to solve some problems. It is just meant for the representation purpose. Okay, so how you are going to represent your data on the web? For that purpose, we use this markup language. So hypertext markup language, and there were earlier to this HTML, there were some other markup languages also existed, but they were only meant for the font style, font properties, how you can put the colors and so on. But the HTML is not only just for that purpose, but it will include, apart from that, it can be used for for other purposes, like to define a proper structure for the document. So like when we open some any web pages, okay, or websites, to have a proper structure for that, we started using this hypertext markup language. So it was developed by Tim Berners-Lee in the year 1991, and it has been defined by the consortium or an organization called as the SGML. So it was being developed from that. That is a standard generalized markup language. We call this, the full form of this SGML is standard generalized markup language. So from that we have defined this HTML. So actually this HTML is being standardized by the International Standardization of Organization, that is ISO. ISO has designed this HTML, and from that we have defined this HTML. So ISO is the one organization or a company which will worldwide give some standards related to the computer science, you can say, or for providing some standards. Like most of the time you might have heard ISO certification and so on, whether it is ISO certified or no. So this HTML was being defined, or it has been standardized by this ISO, and from this HTML we started using this hypertext markup language. And later on we have this another version of this HTML that we call it as the XHTML, and it stands for the extensible hypertext markup language. So what is the basic difference between this HTML and XHTML, or why it was required? When we talk about HTML, no doubt compared to the earlier one, it was good, but it has got some drawbacks. Like the XHTML has got very strict rules and regulations or guidelines to be followed when we are actually programming, or when we write the scripts. We need to write these scripts very properly, and we cannot make any small mistakes. But in case of HTML, if you make some smaller mistakes, or if the tags are not closed properly, sometimes HTML will not ignore that. But whereas in case of XHTML, it will support that. And there are a lot of new things that we wanted to go for. So, or we wanted to have some new features into this web applications, so that we can make some standards which can be compatible with the earlier ones as well. So the XHTML documents can also, they can also run the HTML, but provided that we can have the proper syntaxes and rules and regulations. So this XHTML was developed by W3C, that is the World Wide Web Consortium, in the year 2000. And in case of this, it is been extended from the XML and the HTML. So XHTML has been defined, or it has been extended by the XML, that is extensible markup language, and the HTML. From that, it has been evolved, or it has been extended, we can say. So here the format is a document file format in case of HTML, but in case of this, the format is a markup language. And there are some other differences as well. This we will understand when we actually start programming with it. So in case of HTML, like for example, all tags and attributes are not necessarily to be in the lower or uppercase. So what are tags and other things we'll understand. But in case of XHTML, every tag and attribute should be in lowercase. So when we compare these differences, XHTML is more standard and it is more robust, we can say. And also it when we are writing some programs by using XHTML, we should properly follow these rules and the guidelines. So here in case of like for it is not necessary to close the tags in the order they are open, but here in case of XHTML, it is necessary to close the tags in the order they are open. So and the file extension for the HTML will be .html and .htm, but the file extension for the XHTML will be .xhtml or .xht or .xml, but we will be using .html, or we will be using this .xhtml for the programming part. So these are some of the basic things about the HTML and XHTML, and we are using the version of XHTML, that is the 1.1 version we'll be using for our studies, for our coming programs. Are we all getting it? The basics?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So from next class onwards, we'll be actually starting with these simple programs, and we'll be studying that. So I want you to start practicing these programs the moment I finish with the class. Okay, so that we will we can cover the lab programs as well. Simultaneously, you can practice that. Don't worry if you don't have the laptops or computers. Even in your simple mobile phones also, you can run this, or you can just go for the online any just like W3 schools and so on. you can just type the HTML code and you can run your own code and you can execute it. So you can do that as early as possible. So let us go ahead with the basic structure of it and basic syntax of this HTML program. So in today's class, we'll understand these basic things. So the fundamental syntactic units of HTML are called as the tags. Like in C also, we had some small, what you can say, small segments or smallest units. What we call them?
C tokens.
Exactly. So similar to that, in case of the HTML, we have the small units or syntactic units, we can say, and we call them as the tags. So entire this HTML is consisting of different varieties of tags. And in general, tags are used to specify categories of content. Why basically these tags are required? Like when I open a web browser, okay, so when I open this web browser, there are a lot of things that are appearing. So here is an image. Here we have some links like for the Facebook and other things. Here I have some list, we can say, and here is the image. And here I have some paragraphs. These are some paragraphs that are there. So on the browser or on the web page or on web document, we can say we have got a variety of information. That is, different categories of information are available. So to specify the different categories of information, we use these tags. So tags are used to specify the categories of content. Whether you are using a paragraph, then there is a separate tag. If you are using an image, we need to use a separate tag, and so on and so forth. So tags are used to specify the different categories of content. So how this tags will look like and what is the syntax of it? The syntax of a tag is the tag's name surrounded by the angle brackets. So every tag that we use in HTML will have this opening angular bracket and closing angular bracket, and in between we will write the tag name. Okay, so for example, you can see that here we have a tag called as paragraph tag. So in the web page, if you want to write a paragraph, you can use this tag called as P. So and it is, we can see that it is in the lowercase. So open the angular bracket, write the tag name, close it, and then you will write the content of it. Then there will be a closing tag. So the tag names must be written in the lowercase letters. Most tags appear in pairs. That is, most of the tags that we are using will be always in pairs. So opening tag and the closing tag we call, but there are few tags which do not have the opening and closing pairs, that we will study when we take the actual examples. The name of a closing tag is the name of its corresponding opening tag. Okay, so what will be the name of the closing tag? It will be same as that of the opening tag. So here also we have P, here also P, but it will appear before the tag name. We will be having a slash. So this indicates that this is the end of that particular tag, and this indicates that it is the start of the particular tag. For example, if the tag's name is P, P indicates for the paragraph tag. The corresponding closing tag is named as the /P. So whatever appears between a tag and its closing tag is the content of the tag, or we can say that anything that appears between the opening tag and the closing tag, we call it as the content. So what is the content in this particular example? This is the content. This is GCBCA web programming mode. So this is a content that appears between the opening and closing tag. So this we call it as the content of the tag. And not all tags can have contents. So some of the tags will not have any contents. Like for example, if you take the head tag, here we will not specify any contents. Here the head tag can be used to give some title, or it can be used for the file resources, or like for example, which file we are including. For that purpose we use that, but we are not going to specify any particular content into that. So there are some tags which will not have any contents. So the opening tag and its closing tag together specify a container. So this we call it as the container. The opening tag and the closing tag together we specify the container. So this P and this closing tag P together we call it as the container, and the content that they enclose. So these two together and this information together we call it as the element. So the container and its content together we call it as the element. So what is an element? Basically, the element will include the container and its content, but the container will include the only the opening bracket of the particular tag and the closing bracket, but all these together, okay, starting with the opening tag, closing tag and the content, we call it as the element. Are we clear with these terms? What is a tag? What is the content? What is a container? And what is the element?
Yes, sir.
Others, are we following it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So this, in case of this, the paragraph tag P marks the beginning of the content and the slash P tag marks the uh, end of the content of the paragraph element. So we call it as the paragraph element. So what we can call this? We can call it as the paragraph element. If there is a paragraph, I mean, if there is a tag called as body tag, so we can call it as the body element. So for example, I can have a body and then there will be content and then we'll be closing this body tag. So whatever appears in between this, that becomes the content, and this all together we can call it as the body element. Or like for example, in this above case, we have discussed about the paragraph element, and all this paragraph and other things that we are looking at, this will actually appear between this body tag. So we can say that this paragraph tag appears, I mean, it is included in the body. And for these tags, we can have something called as the attributes, which are used to specify the alternative meanings of a tag and can appear between an opening tag's name and its right angle bracket. So attributes are nothing but some features you want to add. So like for example, one may want to write the paragraph in everything in bold letter. Another may want to give a different color for this particular paragraph. So to do all these things, we have something called as the attributes. We can give a different font style, we can give a font size, we can give a different color and so on. There are a lot of things are there, so that we will be studying in the coming classes, and those are called as the attributes, which are used to specify some alternative meanings for a particular tag. So they are specified in keyword form, which means that the attribute's name is followed by an equal sign and the attribute's value. So to specify these attributes, we take the attribute name and then followed by an equal to sign we give and then the attribute value. What is the font size? So we'll write font size equal to the number like 10, 20 and so on. So attribute names like tag names are written in also lowercase letters, and attribute values must be delimited by the double quotes. So when we write the attribute values, it should be delimited by the double quotes. So we should write them in the double quotes. And how we can write comments? Okay, so the comments can be written in this form. Like in C program, to write a single line comment, we use like double slash. We use like this. Okay. Like in C program, we use comments like this. Okay. Or to have a multiple line comments, we can use like this. Star, slash star, so on. We can have multiple comments and then we can close these comments. Star slash. So these are the multiple line comments. So similarly, in case of web, we use this as a comment. So the comment will start with angular bracket, accelerated mark, then followed by 2 hyphens or 2 dash lines, and then the comment, and then it ends with 2 dashes and then the closing angular bracket. So this is how we write the comments, and always comments will be ignored by that particular browser. So basically comments are meant for the user understanding purpose, what this particular code is doing. So for understanding that purpose, we write these comments. And we know that browsers ignore XHTML comments, and they are for people only. Comments can be spread over as many lines as are needed. For example, you can see that this is the comment. So we can have 1 line, 2 line, 3 line, and number of lines comments we can have. So in case of this, it is same. Whether you are using a single line comment or multiple line comments, we can use this as the comments. So for this, we can consider this as an example. So here we have written a simple program. Okay, at this, what is this version and doc type, other details we will be discussing in the next class. So here is our starts with HTML, XML version and HTML. Then we'll having a called as head tag, and then the title tag. Basically this title tag will be used to what should appear on our browser. So what I have written, our first document, so that will appear here. So this is what we call as the title. Whatever title you give, that will appear on your Windows forms. I mean, not in Windows form, on your tabs. Okay, the information that is appearing in the tabs, that will be written in the title tag. And then followed by that, we will be having this body tag. So all the tags that we want to define, that will be present in the body tab. So in between that, we have written a simple program and simple statement by using this paragraph, and then this body tag will close, and then this HTML will close. So for here, you can observe that every opening bracket, every opening tag has got a respective closing tag with a slash before the tag name. And sometimes the browser will also ignore the spaces. So for example, in this case, if I give some space here, okay, so that space will be ignored by the browser. So here I have given these many spaces, but when I run this program, there will be no space at all. So these extra spaces and other things will be ignored. So you can see that spaces are not present. So to give some spaces, again, we'll be using some different particular tags for that. During that time, we'll understand how to give the space, how to give line breaks, and so on. So from next class onwards, we will start with simple programs. We will understand this, the meaning of this XML version, doc type, and other details in brief. And later we'll start with the actual programming part.